truly, Brevin Thompson is back, this time to talk about possibly one of my favorite James Bond films, Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes, and is the third Daniel Craig James Bond film. Because after Quantum of Solace, which was a huge disappointment to critics and fans of the Bond franchise, Bond needed something, and it needed like a new, fresh take on the character. Sam Mendes came in, and I think that he was a good choice to direct a Bond movie such as this. After directing films such as American Beauty and Road to Perdition, it seems fit enough that he would be a good choice to direct Skyfall. And when it comes to Daniel Craig's performance as Bond in this film, this kind of like captures like Bond is getting older and slower, because in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, that was him in his prime. So this film captures something and brings a more human side to Bond, which I always loved, and that's one of the few things that I love about Daniel Craig's portrayal of James Bond with these films, is that it makes, these films in particular make Bond feel more human and vulnerable. And I love how Martin Campbell and Sam Mendes capture that with both Casino Royale and Skyfall, because in most other Bond films, he mostly feels invincible. Casino Royale changed that, and especially Skyfall, because, we know that James would normally get in, like, life-threatening situations, and he would get out at the last minute, so we always know that he's going to be fine. But when it comes to Daniel Craig's interpretation of Bond, there are moments where we're like, is he going to get out of this or not? Because when it comes to Daniel Craig's Bond, his version of Bond is much more grounded. And when it comes to Skyfall, it's definitely one of my favorite Bond films because of how Daniel Craig's portrayal of Bond is handled in this film. Plus, I love every moment of screen time that's dedicated to Judi Dench's M, because she actually feels like a character, and they give her something to do, which I've always appreciated. And when it comes to Javier Bardem as Raul Silva, he is, without a doubt, my favorite villain in the entire series. I love Mads Mikkelsen in Casino Royale, don't get me wrong. And I like Christoph Waltz in Spectre. And I like plenty of other actors who played Bond villains in the past. But when it comes to Javier Bardem as Silva in this film, he owns every second that he is on screen, especially his introduction, which is all given in just one take. And when it comes to the cinematography, which was done by Roger Deakins, it is beautifully shot. This entire film is beautifully shot. It's no wonder that this film was nominated for an Oscar for its cinematography. I wish that he would have won, because when it comes to Roger Deakins' camera work, he's definitely one of the best cinematographers in the business, especially when it comes to his work on Shawshank, Skyfall, and other films like Blade Runner 2049, where he finally won an Oscar, and especially 1917, mostly 1917 in particular. If you have not watched 1917, do yourself a favor and watch it. It's a superb film and so beautifully shot. I love Roger Deakins' cinematography in that film. But what he does with Skyfall, like, every shot is just... at least the action is shot better than Quantum of Solace. That's one thing that they got right. And I'm just like, thank God they learned their lessons from Quantum of Solace. Now, before I go farther into the review, I have RyanCam collaborating with me again. You've seen him in my review for The Matrix. He's collaborating with me again on Skyfall. He'll be collaborating with me again on The Matrix Reloaded later this month. It's good to have him back, and Ryan, thank you for joining me for this review for Skyfall. Now it's your turn.
Hello everyone, my name is RyanCam. I want to thank Brevin for having me on his channel once again. Last time I was here, we talked about The Matrix. It was a lot of fun. This time around, we're going to be talking about Skyfall, the movie that many consider to be not just the best Bond from Daniel Craig, but the best Bond movie, period. I respectfully disagree on both of those points. However, Skyfall is still a really good movie. Which is interesting because for a time, I actually thought this movie was kind of overrated. Not bad, but everybody was just saying, "Oh my god, this is the best Bond movie ever." And I was just, like, I felt like I was the lone person at times. It was like, it's really good, but the best? I don't know about that. But as I've gotten older and my feelings have matured and my movie watching habits have led me to this point, I've reassessed Skyfall and I can safely say that, yeah, the movie is just as good as people make it out to be. Again, not my favorite Bond movie, that would be Goldfinger, and certainly not my favorite Craig Bond movie, that would be Casino Royale. However, Skyfall, if I were to make a top 10, would be comfortably in there. Thinking about it now, with No Time to Die coming out this weekend, I think Skyfall, in a weird roundabout way, is the end of one era of Bond and the beginning of another. I won't go into spoilers, at least in my portion, but essentially, I feel like this is the end of one era of Bond and the beginning of another, or at least the beginning of what we would see in Spectre and No Time to Die, and hopefully going forward. There is a lot to love about this movie, chief among them being the cinematography. This was honed by Roger Deakins, and having recently watched all of Denis Villeneuve's movies in honor of Dune coming out, I am fairly certain that Roger Deakins has never shot a bad thing with a camera in his entire life. He could pretty much shoot a sandwich and it would look excellent. And there are so many amazing shots in Skyfall that it's almost too good to be true. But similar to his work with Villeneuve, Deakins is brilliant in the larger scale, but also in the smaller scale as well. There are several smaller moments that are honestly some of Craig's best work as Bond. There is a scene in which, after the beginning has happened, he is returned to MI6, he's at the shooting range practicing with his Walther PPK, and he's shooting, and then the camera just focuses in on his face. You see his eyes, he looks more tired than normal. He's got more of a stubble going on. He hasn't shaved in a couple days, I imagine. And there, you just see that this is all taking a bit of a toll on him. This is a more haggard Bond. This is a more world-weary Bond. If I had to compare it to anything, it would be more in the vein of Timothy Dalton's Bond, with a more darker, grittier edge to it. I liked that. I liked the spirit of that. We get to see more of Bond and how he thinks and operates, but not only that, we get to see more about M than in any previous Bond movie, because the whole function of M as a character is basically giving Bond his mission, telling him to go to Q Branch to collect his gadgets, and to not cause an international incident. And that formula has remained rigid from Dr. No up to now. Even Ralph Fiennes, who replaced Judi Dench in this role, is more along the lines of a Bernard Lee in the fact that M is more just being there to give Bond his mission for the movie. Judi Dench's turn as M in Skyfall is the best M that we will probably ever get. Bond and M's relationship, from Casino Royale through the much maligned but not as bad Quantum of Solace, especially in Skyfall, is honestly one of my favorite parts of Craig's Bond. M doesn't see Bond as just another agent. She sees someone special. However, he does things that she does not agree with, so they're butting heads quite a bit. However, deep down, she has a profound respect for him, and that shines like a diamond, especially in Skyfall. There is a speech, especially when M is about to be judged upon as to whether she will be forcefully removed from MI6, where I can't quote it from memory, but it's essentially her saying that the world has changed and we need to adapt. However, MI6 is still important. The double O's are still important because you can use all the technology and computers you want, but at the end of the day, it's the boots on the ground people that get things done. I like that. I like the spirit of that as well. And I guess it's as good a place as any to go into Silva, played by Javier Bardem. And I'm fairly certain that Brevin will go into detail about him. But let's just say that Javier Bardem is just excellent in this movie. He's so terrifying because he is a ghost. M made a really bad decision in the past, and that decision is coming back to haunt her in this movie. One of the scariest scenes in any Bond movie, in my opinion, is when Silva is in that cell and he asks him, "You know what cyanide tastes like?" And he takes out his teeth, and you just see this. You see his mouth, and it's just it's so gross and so scary. But Silva's not some lunatic. I mean, he is crazy, but crazy like a fox. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's calculating. And that's what makes him so scary. And like I said earlier, this is the end of one era of Bond and the beginning of another. There's nostalgia in here, like when Bond has the original Aston Martin DB5, yay for that. Even with the ejector seat, even more yay for that. But it doesn't beat you over the head with the nostalgia. It just says, it just presents it matter-of-factly, like, this is a part of the universe. I thought it was a very nice touch. Not to mention that there's Naomie Harris in here as Eve Moneypenny. She's really good. Ralph Fiennes, like I mentioned, he's always been a great actor. And Albert Finney as the caretaker to Bond's childhood home Skyfall. He's good in the few scenes he's in. This movie is just stuffed to the gills with quality. And at the end of the day, while I believe that Casino Royale is the best Craig Bond, if you tell me that Skyfall is the best, then I will happily agree with you. It's not only one of Craig's best, it's also one of the best Bond movies, period. Easily top 10 or top 5. But once again, I'd like to thank Brevin for having me on his channel. I believe I'm going to be coming back to talk about The Matrix Reloaded, which is a movie that I have yet to see. I have no idea how my feelings on that movie are going to pan out, but it's going to be fun to talk about it with Brevin, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. Brevin, back to you, and thank you once again.
So how the film opens with Bond and E, played by Naomie Harris, tracking down an assassin who stole a hard drive containing a list of covert operatives who are undercover in various terrorist organizations across the globe. How this is shot and edited, I have always loved, with Roger Deakins' cinematography as well as Stuart Baird's editing. When it comes to Stuart Baird, he's definitely one of the best in the business when it comes to editing action films, editing Skyfall, Casino Royale, and Superman, as well as Lethal Weapon. So he definitely knows his shit, and I love that they brought him on board for Skyfall. And how this scene ends with Eve accidentally shooting Bond and presumably killing him, and once Bond's body washes in the water, we finally hear Adele's Skyfall theme. And when it comes to Adele's Skyfall, it's definitely one of my favorite James Bond themes, and it's definitely one of the most beautiful for sure. Say what you can about Billie Eilish's recent No Time to Die theme. I've heard like a little bit of like mixed feelings on that song. I love it, and I'll discuss that more when I discuss No Time to Die. So a few months have passed and MI6 is attacked, and I love when they show Bond, I mean, after he's presumed dead, he uses this as an excuse for early retirement, so the world thinks that he's dead, but he's just living a quiet life. I mean, sleeping with a woman and having a good time having drinks at a bar while having a scorpion on his hand. That one scene with him just about to take a drink with the scorpion on his hand, I'm just like, oh shit. I've always loved that moment. It's a little bit creepy at the same time. Once Bond hears about the attack, he goes back to M and lets her know that he wants to be back on active service. he goes through like various tests. He believes that he's passed them, while in fact he failed miserably, especially with the psychological evaluation test. And once he brings up the word Skyfall, we begin to wonder what that actually means, and we don't really know what it means until like the third act, which I'll get to in a second. So this film mostly focuses not only on like Bond trying to protect M from Silva, but also like him trying to learn how to become 007 again, because right after he believes that he passed his test, and when Gareth Mallory, who's played by Ray Fiennes, says that you don't need to be an operative to see the obvious. It's a young man's game. There's no shame in admitting that you lost a step. And this film kind of like captures that, because once we see like Bond in the firing range, like Ryan mentioned, practicing with his Walther and missing a few shots, you can tell that he's getting he's kind of like he has a chip on his shoulder, and I like how this like captures that pretty well. It shows like a more a vulnerable side to Bond. And when it comes to Q, who's played by Ben Whishaw, I really, really liked him as Q. But I do like Desmond Llewellyn in the classic Bond films, because, I mean, he's always my Q, but I do have a soft spot for Ben Whishaw, so he's pretty good as Q, so that's my personal opinion on that. So yeah, and I like how he like mentions an exploding pen, which is a good nod to GoldenEye. He's like, "What are we expecting, an exploding pen? We don't go to the go for that anymore." Right after he gives Bond his new Walther, as well as a radio transmitter, I really love the line that Bond gives him. He's like, "A gun and a radio. Not exactly Christmas, is it?" It's pretty funny.